Welcome everyone. Thanks for attending this webinar. This one's the third in a series that we'll be presenting of small business solutions collection, if you like. And they're designed to help you look at your business maybe a little bit differently than you have been, alter course, and as we return to what may be normal, plan to move further faster and thrive and sustain over time. Every business faces a crossroads at some point. The leaders or owners look to the future and they know where they want to be, but they don't always know how to get there. They're doing fine or maybe not so fine, but they're surviving. They see the future they've dreamed of, the one where the business is thriving and they move on with confidence. But they really don't have any idea exactly how they're going to turn that vision into a reality. And time is slipping away. So it's important to start with the end in mind, because you need to know where you want to go as an owner. What's the destination? The answer will inform you as to what sort of process you need. So today we're going to think about that and look at ways of building value into your business. Now, all businesses do hit the ceiling or max out at some point, and it's not just businesses. It can be individuals, it can be departments. I myself have maxed out a few times during my career as an individual. I remember when I was working for Coca-Cola in Vienna, Austria, one of my roles was to look after McDonald's and help them expand into new countries. And I'd done this for 10 or so countries, and really it had become an inherent part of the way I helped them and did my job. And suddenly there were no more new countries. And so the management at Atlanta realized that I'd maxed out, hit my own ceiling, and gave me more responsibility for other countries that McDonald's were about to expand into. It re-energized me, changed some of my processes, and as a result, I was much more valuable to the company again. Now, it's particularly important to think about hitting the ceiling for this webinar. Now, this is a rhetorical question because you can't answer me, but do you know any idea how many businesses fail in the first 5 years? Well, there are numbers, various numbers out there and data, but the SBA, Small Business Association, from their data says about 50% of businesses fail in the first 5 years. So what we don't want to happen is that to happen to your business. So, are you bringing in more income than expenses? Are your sales higher than they've ever been, or even last year? Those are great ways to determine if you've got a valuable business. But here's a couple of other ways of looking at this. Could you take a week or even two in a Wi-Fi free zone? In other words, be off the grid. Would your business survive? If you lost your most successful person, salesperson, would your business survive? Though your financials may look good, there's other ways and other factors that you need to look at to help you with your long-term goal. After years of extensive research, John Warrillow concluded that there are 8 key drivers that contribute towards company value. To date, his Value Builder system has looked and surveyed over 30,000 businesses, which has validated that these 8 drivers will significantly impact the value of your company. Now, they're not revolutionary, and as you look around that grid you see in front of you, or the wheel, you'll see that that doesn't seem to be too surprising, maybe a couple, but it's the combining of these that really accelerates your company performance. We found that having a more valuable company means owner freedom, it means more security, it means happier employees, and of course, it's greater security for you. In this series of webinars, we're going to be looking in detail at each of these 8 drivers and try to help you score yourself. I've always been fascinated since I got into the Value Builder system and understanding more about it, how it wasn't just the individual use of this, but the combination of these. And then the other thing is, if you look at as you look at these, you'll see that it's not just, it's the simplicity of the solution. It's not just the what they bring to the party, but it's the simplicity of each one of them Most successful things, as we all know, is the simplicity of them. So today we're going to look at what we call, in the value builder system, the Switzerland structure. Now, what do we know about Switzerland? Apart from the obvious that you're seeing here, which is it's a beautiful country with gorgeous mountains, fabulous ski slopes, and sophisticated villages. It's also known as one of the safest countries. It is the safest country in Europe. But it also boasts some of the world's most famous inventions. And I'm going to read these because I couldn't remember them all. But they created Velcro, cellophane, the Swiss Army knife, absinthe, which, by the way, is a green-looking liquid which is very high in alcoholic level, the potato peeler, Helvetica font, LSD, muesli, edible chocolate gold, and milk chocolate, to name a few. So you've learned something new already, I hope. Located in the middle of Europe, it's an independent country that is obsessed with remaining neutral. It's remained independent because the major countries or powerhouses of Europe realized that they would be a good buffer zone to the rest of Europe. Therefore, they've not carried out or participated in any war since 1815, when they declared military neutrality. They weren't involved in the first two world wars, therefore, and they didn't even join the UN or the United Nations until they had a referendum, and that was in 2002, which was 50 years after the UN had been formed. Switzerland, as I said, has an obsession with remaining neutral. It has a population of about 8.5 million, and believe it or not, is the highest nominal wealth per adult in the world, so above the US. And as you can see from the borders they have, the languages spoken in the country are indeed French, German, and Italian. So what's a Switzerland structure, and why is this so important to us anyway? What's it got to do with you? Just like Switzerland has understood the value of independence, neutrality is also essential to a successful and valuable company. Truly valuable companies do not rely on any one customer, employee, or supplier. If something were to happen to your number one supplier or employee, would your business still survive? We have to get to a place where we can emphatically say yes. So how can you achieve neutrality? According to Peter Brown and Gary Peacock, they were the authors, by the way, of the book called Managing Customers You Can't Afford to Lose. Their research told them that the top 10 to 20 accounts of any B2B organization typically represented between 60 and 80% of revenue and profit. They'd seen cases as high as 95%. In smaller businesses, I've seen a similar pattern. 25 million to $30 million revenue businesses that were reliant upon, say, 5 of their clients for 80% of the business. Now, the consequences of losing one of these customers is dramatic. And in today's business environment, almost impossible to replace them. And competitors would fight tooth and nail to protect them at all costs. Companies commonly retain customers by discounting, giving them cheaper prices. And that, of course, is going to affect the bottom line profits. Several years ago, and probably more than I'd like to let on to you, I worked for a privately owned company which had a revenue of about $600 million. And they originated out of Sydney, Australia. I'd been the general manager in Germany, had moved to Chicago as a promotion. And we'd been trying to improve or lessen the reliance that they had on the McDonald's business. McDonald's was 85 to 90% of their business, that one customer. And so one of our initiatives was to reduce that reliance. We were a below the line agency, one of two, and we worked on sales promotions, digital marketing, websites, trade shows, and catalogs. But on top of that reliance on McDonald's, we also were reliant upon Happy Meals. We supplied something like 45 to 50% of the global Happy Meal toys to McDonald's. And that was 80 to 90% of the total agency business. So we had a double whammy. Many people, including myself, spent considerable time trying to convince the privately held company, the two owners, to diversify and reduce the risk. But change was hard. And finally it had to come because in 2016, McDonald's awarded the Happy Meal business to another supplier. Overnight, virtually 500 jobs were gone. And in the short period of time, as you can imagine, revenue plummeted. So a good lesson from this is, and a good yardstick probably, is make sure that one customer represents no more than 15 to 20% of your sales. We also need to have less dependence on key employees. Now, you may have come across the term key person dependency risk. And what that really means is it's a threat posed to an organization with an over-reliance on one or few individuals. We often find this happens in small companies because the owner is the hub and spoke, but it's a danger to the value of the business. When a key person has sole custody of some critical information, knowledge, creativity, or reputation, then it will affect the value of the company. If they should leave, the organization suffers the loss of that value standing and expertise. So, examples of this are one salesperson bringing in 80% of the business, as we alluded to earlier. A lathe operator who does the processing of one particular key part for a product, or a web designer being the only person having access to that website. Within reason, no employee should be indispensable. A well-managed company is never dependent upon the performance of one or a few individuals. And no one employee should be allowed to hoard the knowledge that is sacrosanct to that company. The basic solution to key person dependency risk is to identify and document critical knowledge of the organization. Capturing tacit knowledge is not easy when it resides just in somebody's head. So to reduce the danger of such dependencies, firms must also focus on cross-training, making sure other people know the processes, as well as succession planning. Reduced dependence on key suppliers would be the third area to achieve neutrality. Many companies have a rule that they have to have at least 2 suppliers for every product category and service. A few years ago, we had a client who had a sole supplier for a key part of their manufacturing process. The supplier had a pretty extensive fire at the main plant, and you can imagine what came next. They couldn't complete some major projects, so our client had to let down a lot of their customers with major projects that they promised and contracted to, and they ended up losing those customers who went elsewhere. They didn't want to wait for the supply problem to be solved. Now, if you buy widgets from a sole supplier and a large shipment of the product turns out to be defective, you have a huge financial domino effect that can affect your business. For example, if the widget is used in a garage door installation such as you see here, and you've already installed 100 garage doors, now you've got to go back to each of the homeowners, explain the problem, and start a process for replacing them. You're going to have to stop work on all the other projects and find a new supplier and get replacement parts. This can cost time, money, but probably more importantly, the credibility of your business. Multiple sourcing may help you get more for your money. Using multiple sources provides competition and provides an incentive for each supplier to improve their cost and services. They're competing for a bigger percentage of your business. And I've known some clients who've actually incentivized that by giving more business based on better performance by some of their suppliers. So they create a competitive environment within their own supply chain. Where multiple sourcing really becomes an advantage is for businesses which are highly seasonal. Highly seasonal businesses can create bottlenecks if you're reliant upon one supplier, because that supplier just isn't able to ramp up to what you need in an explosive situation. Now, the Switzerland structure is just one of those key 8 drivers of value in your business. And I hope you can see from these examples how important it can be to you. As I mentioned earlier, these 8 drivers aren't revolutionary, but it's the combining of them together as well as the understanding of how to leverage them that can really make your business go further, faster. We would like to provide you with the opportunity to discover your overall score and how you rate yourself on these 8 drivers. It will help you discover what levers you need most and where you should focus to create the biggest impact. So I want to thank you really for joining us today. And you can access the survey by visiting that link that you see on the screen above. It will help you have a better understanding of the value of your business, as well as some direction on where your opportunities exist. As I said at the beginning, this is the 3rd in a series called Small Business Solutions, in which we'll be taking you through each of the drivers in more detail. Therefore, you can see how they work and how you can apply them to your own business. It's not just theory, we want to bring them alive for you. They're designed to help you look at your business a little differently, maybe alter course. And as we return to the new normal, plan to move further faster and thrive and sustain over time. I want to thank you very much for joining us today, and I hope you'll join us again for the next webinar. Have a great day.